Since the wise men have not spoken, I speak that I'm only a fool. They're Páirtí Pierce's words, but they could be mine. At my age, it's common enough, I think, among men in particular, women too, but men in particular, to look back on their lives and ask themselves, having achieved what they've achieved, having failed in what they've failed, to ask themselves, where did it all go wrong? Most people don't know exactly where it all went wrong. I do. March 5th, 1992. The Supreme Court ruled that in the X case that the Eighth Amendment envisaged abortion in some circumstances. The state conspired. Even Albert Reynolds the Taoiseach then, met with a leader of the pro-abortion movement. And the Attorney General not only funded a case against the Eighth Amendment, but in arguing in favour of the right to life of the unborn child in the particular case, he surrendered the notion and failed to argue that abortion was not contemplated in some circumstances under the Eighth Amendment. The Supreme Court was thrown the heaviest political hint that it is possible to give as to what the government wanted. And the Supreme Court did what they wanted. And they concluded that the Eighth Amendment allowed for abortion, albeit, relatively speaking, in limited circumstances. It was my last year in college. The Maastricht referendum was coming up and I was going to do some work on that. And I thought to myself, in response to the X case, I'll do a little bit of work for a couple of months on this X case thing. And we'll get a referendum on the X case thing and we'll overthrow it and we will return the Eighth Amendment to its proper language meaning. That's what I thought. I'd give this thing a couple of months. I am a fool. It's 26 years later, and here I am. Months have passed, years have passed. I'm not blaming the Supreme Court for everything that went wrong in my life, but post hoc ergo propter hoc is the very weak line that I will take in saying that it happened afterwards, so therefore it was caused by it. The X case was a personal disaster. The X case decision was nonsense. The X case decision was founded on three reasons. Three basics of law were ignored in order to come to the conclusion. And they were this. The law should be read in a plain language meaning. In other words, if there's no doubt as to what it means, then it means what it says. The right to life of the unborn child, with all due respect to the equal right to life of the mother. A perfectly reasonable statement. The Supreme Court concluded in Orwellian terms that equal was all very well, but some were more equal than others. They breached the legal doctrine of original intent. Original intent is very simple. It's you read the law in terms of what the people who wrote the law intended it to mean. And in 1992, we were just 9 years out from a referendum where everybody knew, who voted yes, who voted no, everybody knew that what they were doing was voting against abortion being introduced into Ireland. The original intent was clear. The Supreme Court ignored it. And broke the law of original intent. There's another principle that they breached too, which is called, it's more obscure, but it's called stereostasis. Really, what that means is that if a law is in place, then it needs a heavy requirement to be changed. But we didn't have a court that believed in plain language, and we didn't have a court that believed in original intent. We didn't have a court that believed in stare decisis. We had a court that believed in judicial activism, that the Constitution was a living document, whatever that means. I wonder how many of these pieces of paper will stand up and walk out the door before I'm finished, on the basis that they are a living document. Prevailing concepts and ideas, the Supreme Court said. And this is the problem with stare decisis. The reason for it is this, is people should be sure of what the law means. You should not go into a court case and not have the faintest notion what the outcome is going to be. You should be able to read the law and say, there it is, that's what it is, that's what happened. Abortion was illegal in Ireland before 1983. The amendment encapsulated it into the Constitution. The Supreme Court went just 9 years later, prevailing concepts and ideas. Under prevailing concept ideas, reading of constitutional law, legislative law, or any law at all, the court has taken upon itself quitocratic rights to say, we don't care what the law is. We don't care what's written down, we don't care why it was written there, and we don't care how important it is. If in our opinion it can be changed, we can change it. How much power did they take upon themselves in doing that? How much quitocratic authority did they take upon themselves in doing that? And is there any limitation at all on prevailing concepts and ideas reading of the law? I was recently involved in a court case, a personal court case myself, and the I won't get into the details of it, but I will tell you this notion of judicial activism is becoming a cancer on the Irish judiciary. My solicitor told me in advance of the case, which turned out quite well actually, because he shut up and I did most of the talking. But so it turned out quite well. But he told me in advance, and it was true. He says, this judge doesn't care about the law. Don't bother talking to him about the law. He's not interested in that. He'll make up his mind based on what he thinks. And he'll either like you or he won't like you, or he'll either like your opposing team or he won't. And it's based on who he likes. So be nice. Not be right, be nice. That's how you win court cases these days. Now you ask yourself, why do I pay so much attention to the 1992 referendum or the 1992 X case judgment? Because it's such a very long time ago. Some of the people in this room were not even alive in 1992 to hear that judgment, but you're here to feel the consequences of it. I tell you why I spend so much time on it. Is because I am sick and tired of the conservatism of constant retreat. I'm sick and tired. I'm sick and tired of saying, oh, well, the Supreme Court made that judgment in 1992 and we're stuck with that. That can never be changed. And I'm sick and tired of the idea that the Protection of Life and Pregnancy Act, as it's so utterly misnamed, as it results in, as the government claims, so very few abortions compared to the avalanche that certain people said would occur. I didn't say an avalanche would occur, but I tell you something, as the figures show, roughly 200 babies a year are dying of the Protection of Life in Pregnancy Act, and that's too many. So if in chronological terms 1992 seems so far back there, I tell you straight that in political terms, the 1992 case and the X case ruling is over there, straight ahead, forward. That's where we need to go. That's our ultimate goal, to overturn that mistake and that error. Because a very genuine person said to me the other day, a very genuine person said, we're stuck with the Protection of Life and Pregnancy Act now, aren't we, even if we manage to prevent them from repealing the 8th? No, we're not. It's about dead babies. It's about dead babies, and when you have dead babies on the line, the question that you have before you is sometimes limiting the numbers in terms of what you can practically do politically. But the principle upon which we stand, the principle upon which abortion never stands, the principle upon which we are running this campaign is one too many. One is not okay. Let the pro-abortionists scroll their chalk marks in front of the Irish Embassy in London in ghoulish triumph. 195,000, they say, since 1983. Journeys for abortion. Too many journeys. I suggest strongly that there have been many more journeys to England than 195,000. But what makes these marks, the chalk marks on front of the embassy in London, is that each one of them marks the life of a baby that died for no good reason. And that chalk mark is the only mark on remembrance in the world worse than indifferent, but positively planning for more. The other reason why I go back to 1992, because I will not give up ground forever. I go back because I have already started to hear voices on our side make the slippery slope argument that if we repeal the 8th, that things will get worse, and that the number of abortions that will take place in the year after the repeal of the 8th Amendment is only a small fraction of the number that will take place the year after that, and the year after that, and the year after that. I've been in the conservative movement long enough, and I've heard this before. It's the sound of a trench being dug a mile backwards. A retreat line. We're going to argue in 6 months that what's needed is, now that there isn't an 8th Amendment, well, at least we need legislation to limit the number of weeks. And without mentioning any names except for one, there are some in this campaign who are already ready for defeat, already ready for retreat. And we will see Senator Ronan Mullen with his little card outside of Leinster House going, "It's okay to vote no." It's okay, is it? I tell you what, it's not okay to vote yes. I don't know if this strategy of it's okay to vote no has ever worked. I've not seen it work in my lifetime. It reminds me of the many European debates that I have been involved in. The first one that I personally was involved in was the Single European Act. I was 16 at the time. It was 1987. So you can work out just how old I am from that if you're bothered. Many of the people involved in that campaign, I was a poster and I was a leafleter. It is a noble task. I say it's a noble task because some people think, oh, well, if you're on the television, that makes you important. That doesn't make you important. That doesn't make you important. It makes you in a dangerous spot. And it makes you responsible for a lot. But that's not the important part of the abortion campaign, or any campaign. During that time, that bicycle I had, a little bit like Michael Collins riding around Dublin in 1920, I was probably as unrecognised indeed by anybody who saw me, putting up posters against the Single European Act. But the spokespeople in the front line, they had opposed the Treaty of Rome as well. And during the Single European Act, you know what they said? They said we can keep the benefits of the Treaty of Rome if only we vote no to the Single European Act. And the answer was obvious, but you opposed the Treaty of Rome. And then along came Maastricht. And they said you can keep the benefits of the Treaty of Rome and you can keep the benefits of the Single European Act if you only vote against Maastricht. And then he said in the Treaty of Amsterdam, well, you can keep the benefits of the Treaty of Rome, the Single European Act of Maastricht, if you'll only vote against Amsterdam. That to me is an astonishing thing to say. It says, look, I was wrong about the Treaty of Rome, and I was wrong about the Single European Act, and I was wrong about Maastricht, but I'm right about Amsterdam. Trust me. Single European Act was the first European referendum that I took any part in at all. The only mark I left was a letter to the Nina Guardian at the time that the amendment passed. It shocked me, to tell you the truth. I couldn't believe that the Irish people would vote away their freedom the way they did. But my commentary on the Single European Act was, oh, what a fall. This is Shakespeare's words, by the way, I'm not claiming them. Oh, what a fall was there, my countrymen. Then I and you and all of us fell down, whilst bloody treason flourished over us. When it came to the No to Nice campaign, I couldn't very well go into it saying, well, the Single European Act was fine. So I went into it with this spirit, is the Treaty of Rome needs to be renegotiated, the Single European Act needs to be scrapped, Maastricht was a mistake, Amsterdam must be repealed, and we must have our freedom back. And the No to Nice came into that referendum campaign in that spirit and did what everybody said could not be done. I have squandered the splendid years that the Lord God gave to my youth in attempting impossible things, deeming them alone worth the toil. Pearce's words again. Impossible. But we did it. Now it is beholden on anyone in forming a new group, especially where there are other groups available, to explain why this group is needed and why this group is different. And to a certain extent that does involve a criticism of those groups that are already in existence, who say they represent the same point of view. The National Party, for example, represents such a force. Yes, there was nothing on the right of Irish politics, and that was our general claim to a right to exist, to a right to be the voice. But here was our central claim above all else, I would say, is our Yesha Raig, forward to the right. To the right, yes, but above all, forward. Abortion Never is such a new group. There are other pro-life groups. I don't fault them in general as people. They're very good people. They're very genuine people. I do believe that they are mistaken in the campaign they are running. And I do believe they are going to lose it. And that is the purpose of Abortion Never. We must put a new piece on the chessboard, or else it is lost. Most of the Abortion Never people will be, of course, National Party members, but it is not necessary to agree with all the full party principles. in order to be involved in abortion, never. That means there will be more than just National Party members involved, and we need to understand that they will come in with a variety of other views, so long as they are solid on this particular issue for this particular 3 months. Now, what is the failing of the campaign so far? Thankfully, it's not a failing just of the no campaign, it's a failing of the yes campaign as well. It's the glorious middle ground. Everybody thinks you must win the middle ground. And ladies and gentlemen, that's why you will hear is that Justin Barrett is too controversial to be involved in this referendum. And you will hear it not only from the left, you will hear it from the so-called conservatives as well. It's better he stayed out of the referendum. It's better he had nothing to do with it. It's bad enough that he had the history of being 26 years involved in the pro-life movement and during that time made some mistakes. Do you know, there's something about a man who has spent 26 years doing anything without making mistakes is that he probably didn't achieve much. So I've made my mistakes along the way. But they will tell you the worst of them all is that I started the National Party now. Oh my God, the middle ground will be alienated by the existence of a right-wing party that's openly so. And they will be able to throw the label, will they not, that we are far-right extremists. Far right. Yay. I would say right so far. But Pearse's words again, the lawyers have sat in council, the men with the keen long faces, and then said, this man is a fool. And others have said, he blasphemeth. The pro-life movement in this country had 10 years of no controversy from me. I was not involved in public life. And they took us all the way from the pressure to get a pro-life referendum to overturn the X case judgment. They brought us all the way to the door of repeal. It is not a record of success. And I have a cold hard truth for them and for you. If everything continues on its current trajectory, if there is no change, if there is no different policy, if there is no different demographic targeted, if there are no different voters than the ones that are already been directed at, if there's no different argument made, then I can tell you that Justin Barrett and abortion never, cannot lose this referendum, because the whole cold hard truth of it is it's lost already. What we bring to this campaign and what we bring to this argument is not controversy, although we will, I hope. But we bring the difference. A referendum that is lost at this minute. We can win it. Again, I go back to the European referendums, and everybody I talked to during the Nice campaign, I mean seasoned campaigners, said, well, we'll put up a good show, but we won't win. I said, we'll win. I started at the beginning and I said, we will win. Pat Leahy rang me the night before the vote, and he said to me, what do you think the result is going to be tomorrow? I said 54-46. He said, everybody else is saying, well, it'll be a narrow, but it'll be a yes vote. I said, no, 54-46, it will be rock solid. The following morning, 54-46. I have a habit of pulling figures out of the air which turn out to be true. We can win this thing. We can win this thing, and we can win it by doing it not the way you're supposed to do. Because what I've seen thus far in this campaign is a very modern thing. Because both sides, let's face it, the larger groups on each side, seem to have plenty of money. So what I'm looking at are two marketing campaigns. Selling washing powder to the middle ground. They have too much money, really. We don't have that problem, and I'll come to that in a while. They have made two errors, and as I said, thankfully the other side have made the same. They think the middle ground is what has to be won. I have fought two referendums, as I said, and I've won two referendums in a fairly prominent position. I have won neither of them from the middle ground. There is a belief, absolutely sacrosanct in Irish politics, that there must be unity in any given campaign between all the groups on the one side. During the first Nice campaign, Anthony Coughlin tried to arrange a meeting between myself as a representative of the No to Nice campaign, the Green Party, PANA, a few other things. I can't remember their names because I didn't go to it. I wasn't controversial enough for them to disagree, but they were controversial enough for me not to want to go. I don't want to talk to the Green Party about why they think the European federalism has gone too far when they're fundamentally federalist. I don't want to hear their small tweaky differences. The No to Nice campaign was about Irish freedom. This campaign is about Irish lives. And in practical terms, I'll tell you what unity of campaign means. It means one narrative, it means one constituency, it means one block vote, which means a minority, which means you lose. Two referendums I have won, both I have courted a different and even an opposite demographic. So here is the unique and yet in many ways obvious difference and reason that the abortion never campaign exists as distinct from the other groups. And I'm not saying we have a hostility to the other groups. I'm just saying that they have made a mistake. Or rather, their marketing team has made a mistake. There are 60% turnout in most referendums in Ireland. Even in the gay marriage referendum, where the left claims that the whole country was mobilised and spoke as one, 38% of people voted no, 40% of people stayed at home. Now I would suggest to you, and I think it's pretty reasonable, I would suggest to you that the 40% of people who stay at home are 40% of people who think on any given issue, because it's always roughly 40%, it doesn't really matter that much. If there's a yes vote to whatever, they're grand with that. If there's a no vote to it, they're grand with that too. Where are the votes to save the Eighth Amendment? The middle ground will watch back and forth as this campaign continues, and they will quite rightly conclude that in the binary choice that is on the ballot paper, that they are unrepresented. The middle ground, the so-called middle ground, if there is such a thing between life and death, is not represented on this ballot paper anywhere and will not be represented on this ballot paper. There is no place on this ballot paper to vote for abortion for just rape and incest. There's no place on the ballot paper to vote for abortion for just fetal abnormality. There's no place on the ballot paper to vote for the life and the health of the mother. There is no place on the ballot paper, and this is important, there's no place on the ballot paper for voting against the Catholic Church or the history of the Catholic Church. There are people who say, oh, well, Justin Marks he's just a fundamentalist Catholic. I go back to 2002 or 2001, and James made reference to it there in the abortion referendum, is they said to me, you cannot win an abortion referendum against the pro-life campaign, Fianna Fáil, and the Roman Catholic Church. I think I am possibly alone, certainly in this country, possibly even the world, in having won a referendum against abortion against the Roman Catholic Church. When the bishops abandon the faith, when the bishops abandon the unborn child, I will abandon them. Their voice means nothing to me. If they cannot stand up for something as basic and obvious and clear as the right to life of the unborn child, I'm not bound by what any bishop says. I said in a previous meeting, I don't need a theologian to tell me that abortion is wrong. I'll go further than that. I've had many theologians tell me that in some circumstances it's all right. It just damn well isn't. There's no place on the ballot paper that will take back the Magdalene laundries. There's no place on the ballot paper that will make the mother and baby homes not have happened. There's only a place on the ballot paper that will allow the Oireachtas the total power of parliamentary dictatorship to do whatever they like. And they've made it very clear, in fairness to them, what their intention is. There is no slippery slope. There's not the thin end of the wedge. It is the whole wedge. It is 12 weeks of abortion without restriction. 3 months. Anybody who has ever been pregnant or has been the partner of a woman who has been pregnant realizes just how long 3 months is and just how developed the unborn child is. It's developed so much that you know from the outside, never mind having to look at ultrasound pictures, never mind having to look at the scientific detail. 3 months. This is the blob of cells they talk about, their scientific argument, the pro-life people are only motivated by religious fanaticism. People are entitled to be motivated by their Catholic faith. People are entitled to be motivated by their Protestant faith. People are entitled to be motivated by their faith in God. But if they don't match the facts, then they have a point. But it is the religious faith of militant atheism that denies the reality of the humanity of the unborn child, which you can see clear as day. There is no slippery slope after this referendum. This is not the thin end of the wedge, it is the wedge. There is no worse they can do, there is no further they can go. It is abortion for the full term, because whereas 12 weeks is without restriction on mental health grounds, and we have seen what that has done in Britain, that's abortion on demand, and that has no, as the 8th Committee said, gestational limits. And who is going to do the abortions up to the 12 weeks? Your local GP. Your local GP is going to be your abortionist. That's going to be the abortion clinic. And the government says, oh, well, we can introduce a conscience clause. The conscience clause that Simon Harris has proposed is that the GP personally can refuse to give the prescription for the murder pill. And that's what it is, a murder pill. But he must refer that woman to a doctor in the immediate vicinity who will prescribe the murder pill. Now, you tell me that's a conscientious objection. You tell me that you have no responsibility if you have somebody comes in. I gave James the example the other night, and with all due respect to his mother, and all due respect to the non-murderous tendencies that our alleged vice president had, I said to him, if there was a scenario in which you came over to my house and you said to me is that you wanted to kill your mother and you needed a gun to do it, and I said to you, well, James, I can't give you a gun, but I tell you where you can get one. Am I not responsible? Have they not made every GP in the country responsible? Isn't the waiting rooms of the doctor's surgery in every small town in Ireland an abortion clinic? Did the person... When you bring your small child to the doctor because he or she has a cough, you don't know if the person before you has just walked out with a murder pill. And the person sitting beside you in that waiting room, you don't know if they're going in for an abortion pill. That's not good enough. There is no slippery slope. There is no thin on the wedge. This is the worst thing that can happen. Repeal the 8th Amendment is the removal of all protection of the right to life of the unborn child. And they were very clear, and James mentioned it in his speech, they were very clear. They're going to make sure that there's an enabling clause added to the Constitution to make sure that no judge in his mad rebellion decides to find that the unborn child has a right to life under some other section of the Constitution, because the right to life is guaranteed for a person, and the unborn child is a person. How dangerous is that? The Oireachtas has taken upon itself. The parliamentary dictatorship has taken upon itself the right to decide who is a person and who is not a person. The right to decide absolutely and always where life begins, where life ends. And it doesn't, as I said, end. It doesn't begin just with abortion and stop there. It ends in euthanasia, because they already have a plan. You see discussions about this in newspapers sometimes. What are we going to do about the pensions crisis? I've mentioned this before. What are you going to do about the pensions crisis, since nobody's having any children and people are aborting the children, or at least the pregnancies of the children that they would have had? This is a false debate. They already know what they're going to do. And I look out at the young faces in the audience here today, and I think to myself, you might think that's a long way off. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. The X-case decision was 26 years ago. It feels like yesterday. And I guess 26 years on from now won't seem so long either when I look back at it. And 26 years more, if I am lucky, just on a personal basis, and live that long, is and I'd have to be very lucky at this point. They know what to do. They know how to get rid of the pensions crisis. They already know. And this is part of it. This repeal the 8th is part of it. They're not going to just kill the unborn children. They're going to kill you. You're next. You're next when you stop becoming a productive economic unit, a consumer and a producer. And they have gone for broke on this, because you can't win an abortion referendum from the centre. I proved that in 2001, is if the left opposes and the right opposes it, the centre isn't big enough. So they've gone for broke, and they have co-opted the extremities of the left. There isn't anybody on the farthest extremes of the left, of the repeal campaign, which is not perfectly happy with this vote. Is not perfectly happy with this referendum. And now we ask ourselves, with all the side issues, how many babies with Down syndrome will be killed, how many babies with fatal abnormalities will be killed, how many babies of women who claim to be suicidal will be killed. The vote for against abortion is not to be found in the centre, it's to be found in the very definition. Abortion is the direct and intentional killing of the unborn child for any reason or none. And that's where the focus of the campaign must be. And it must be as divisive as possible. It must cut down the line. It must be a yes or no stand, one side or another, for you cannot have an in-between. It's not on the table, it's not on the ballot paper. You cannot be both alive and dead. So the other side want a respectful debate. Of course they want a respectable debate, because that implies that there is something to argue about and that there is something respectable about holding the other point of view. The direct and intentional killing of a child. It is about nothing more and it is about nothing less. If the 40% of the electorate stay at home, it's because they do not think it matters. And if you listen to the abortion debates on the radio or on television, you get that sense. It's polite, it's respectful. I had my chance to talk, now it's your chance to talk. It fosters that sense of it doesn't matter, and that's why they will stay at home. It matters. We must convince the 40% that matters. Because this is what is on the ballot paper, the Eighth Amendment, the most reasonable, the most moderate, the most calm address to that question. The state recognises the right to life of the unborn child with due regard to the equal right to life of the mother, and guarantees by its laws to protect that right. As far as is practicable, it's even that reasonable. This horrendous amendment. Nobody talks about what's in the Eighth Amendment. Let's talk about what's in it. It is, if anything, too calm a way to state the awfulness of what will happen if it's gone. And within that, there are two camps solidly set up, for and against abortion, for abortion against, and strongly. So the opinion polls suggest at this moment, and I say, well, that's why I say we're on the trajectory to lose. And everybody else, every other campaign, pro-life campaign, for that matter, the pro-abortion campaign, are scratching around in the middle ground for votes that can be won. Abortion never's job. And I'm not saying that's unimportant, because I've seen referendums come down to 4,000 votes. I've seen them come down to 10,000 votes. So I'm not saying it's unimportant. But the bulk of the vote must be got from the 40% who normally stay at home. Abortion never's job. Our task, our unique contribution, is to convince the 40%, or a significant section of that 40%, that it matters enough to care about, and it matters enough to vote about. And I tell you, it'll be an easier task to convince somebody that it matters enough to go a mile down the road to their local primary school to vote than it will be to convince people to come back from Canada or Australia, because they're just that stupid to come back to vote for one day. Anybody who does that should be struck off the ballot instantly for being insane. So let the abortionists call me what they like. Controversial is the mildest of it. At least people will sit up and listen. We have developed a campaign to reach the 40%. We have the detail, and in the weeks coming up to this meeting and in the next couple of weeks, we will have an elaboration of that for everybody. But I tell you, we have no money. I took the last of my personal savings and I have put it into this campaign. I was astonished at what little there was. Not much to show money-wise for a middle-aged man, but there you go. It's all in this campaign now. We have to have money. We have hundreds of young people around the country. We have the people in this room dedicated to campaigning strongly against this amendment that will remove the protection of the right to life of the unborn child and give it over to the Oireachtas. We have tried as much as we can to develop a flexible campaign so that we can expand it upwards and downwards depending on how much money we have. But I tell you, at this present moment, I'll be very perfectly honest with you. I make this desperate plea. I make it in the most pleading of terms. Because we do not have enough. We do not have nearly enough. We do not have anything anything that could possibly run the campaign that we need to run. We need money. I'm talking to the people in this room, but I recognise that there are many young faces in this room, and no more than myself when I was your age. You have no money. That's fine. Work hard for the campaign. It's worth money. But speaking in social media terms, when the speech goes out further than this room, I plead with you. We need money. I don't like to beg, but I will, because there are lives at stake. And when there are lives at stake, there isn't anything I'm not willing to do. This may well be the defining vote of our generation. And it is intricately linked into the national idea, which is why it's a national party campaign. I can't wait for the expose about how abortion never is really run by the National Party. It is run by the National Party. Don't bother with your headlines for your secrets. It's run by the National Party. It will be run by the National Party. Because defending the right to life of the unborn child is defending the national idea. Again, as our Vice President said, it's time and time again at National Party meetings about the national idea. We have talked about whether Ireland will live or Ireland will die. If our next generation does not live, Ireland will die. And no nationalist dare come to me and say, I believe in the Irish nation. I believe in the future of the Irish people, but I think abortion is all right. That makes no sense to me. If we are going to vacate this island anyway, by not having children or by killing the children that we have in the womb, then what matter who takes our place? This is our island. This is Ireland's Irish Ireland. And the only way to keep it Irish is to have some Irish people in it. Mary Lou MacDonald. Mary Lou. Mary Lou MacDonald was on the Late Late Show last night, and she says the only question at issue here is not the right to life of the unborn child. It's whether you trust women or not. Trust women, she says. That's the only question that needs to be answered. Is it, Mary Lou? Trust women. Arlene Foster? Theresa May? Queen Elizabeth II? Or let's just shove it in there for the sheer harshness of it, Margaret Thatcher. Mary Lou MacDonald says the answer to all our problems is trust women. I don't think those particular women is what she means. I prefer to stand by a Republican of real standing, not the faux Marxist republicanism of the current conservatives. For that, we take Dan Brian, who said, the people of Ireland, and then after that come the hills and the dales and the rivers. I can look at them, but I can't look at them if the people aren't there. That's republicanism. That's nationalism. That is the spirit which motivates everything that the National Party does, and motivates in particular what we are going to do in the next 3 months. People have said to us, oh, you know, the National Party does nothing. We will show them what we will do. We will show them what we will do. And we will go in with good hearts into this campaign, solid in the knowledge that first and foremost we are fighting for the right thing in the right way. And more than that, we're doing it with the right people. I see it as an impossible campaign, and therefore we will win. For the wise men that I spoke of at the beginning. Oh, wise men, riddle me this. What if the dream come true? What if the dream come true, and if millions yet unborn shall dwell in the house I shaped in my heart, the noble house of my thought? And so I speak, yea, ere my hot youth pass. Well, my hot youth is long past, but Pierce's was not. I speak to my people and say, ye shall be as foolish as I, ye shall scatter, not save, ye shall venture your all, lest you lose more than is all. Ye shall call for a miracle, taking Christ at his word. And for this I will answer, O people, answer here and hereafter. O people that I have loved, shall we not answer together? Or yes, you're right.